Hello, everyone, and welcome finally to the 11th episode of the Broadcast Club. I am your host for this episode, Nakanashi.
I am Ange Time.
And I'm Rellin a Tricolor.
Today, we are going to be talking about a very important facet of visual novels, music inside VNs, something that any kind of digital media is able to have. You don't get music in books, for example, though, which is a common comparison that we make to visual novels. So kind of something that the medium is uniquely suited to have as a part of it. And so just kind of to start things off, we're going to talk about just why is music in VNs important?
Well, for me, since visual novels, compared to other mediums with sound, music or games or whatever, like those tend to be, I want to say, a little like there's always something something else happening in addition to the music, so you might not always get to hear the music while stuff is happening. But with visual novels, since it's most of the time going to be static sprites and voice acting and text that you can go at your own speed, I think it's more important to have another way of the reader getting invested in the story. And I feel like the music, since like I said, the sound of the action is a little more limited. You're gonna having good music can help set the tone for the story or whatever's going on. And I think it helps the immersion more, since like I said, there's only text and sprite and voice acting to get you into the experience, as opposed to something else like gameplay or full action going on.
Yeah, you actually mentioned something interesting there that I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on this discussion, but I think one of the very interesting constraints with something like a visual novel compared to, say, a game or anime or movie, really anything that has sound in it, is that with a visual novel you cannot control the speed at which the player advances text unless they're on auto, which is actually kind of a neat constraint for the medium, because the music has to fit into scenarios where you can't precisely control how long it's playing for, which is a definite advantage that other things have, because they can control the exact start stop time.
Yeah, that was especially with what Andrew's saying, saying that, yeah, you can read it at your own pace. And that is very true for, I don't know about you guys, but me sometimes I'll be reading along and then I'll be like, oh, what's happening on Discord? And then I just disappear over to
Oh,
Discord for
absolutely.
5 to 10, 20 minutes sometimes. And then come back. And the whole time the music is going.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the good things is, for me at least, a lot of in kind of your general slice of life scenes, it's not something that's going to be really intrusive.
Mm-hmm.
The music is just going to be kind of back there, is kind of setting the mood, and that's nice. And but it doesn't get in the way. But it reminds me that the game is back there, and I should get back to it. But yeah, the fact that you can't, unless like Ron was saying, unless you are on auto mode, the developers can't control how fast you actually go through it.
Yeah, like it's just it's an interesting kind of constraint, because it kind of forces the sound design to have certain expectations, or rather a lack of certain expectations that is not present in other media, where they can explicitly control how the music is played.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think this kind of leads to some interesting stuff. For example, looking at, say, Umineko, where a lot of the tracks, for example, have built-in repeats into them. Like a lot of the ZTS tracks, for example, like World End Dominator, Last End Conductor, they naturally just repeat in the course of the song, if you just look at the sound file. But this, blends itself very nicely into being an actual song in a scene, because it has a built-in kind of expectation of looping that you might not expect in other songs.
Yeah, and that's something that's kind of interesting. Some VNs do that and some don't. And it really surprises me on the ones that have a fade out and then the track begins again.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the expectation really should be there that, hey, if we got a 2-minute track, I bet 95% of the time we're going to be using this track longer than 2 minutes at a time. And for me, it's actually it's jarring for the music to fade out and then start again when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Experienced a couple things that did that. My favorite was one that one very quickly made free game that I read. had loops in the music, but it actually looped 3 seconds early. And just had this really jarring thing. I was like, at that point, maybe we should have faded out. Thank you, Sakura Valentine's Day.
I'm not surprised by this.
Neither am I. So, like, was the music, like, was it, like, the end of the song and, like, the beginning of the song were kind of playing at the same time in a weird way?
No. It wasn't like that. It was like you could hear that it was setting up for the loop. Like, you could just tell, and then all of a sudden, we were back at the beginning. I was like, what did you just... It was not good.
Interesting. But yeah, like, the only... As far as other media goes, like, the only other... like type of media I can think of that kind of has like background music or whatever similar to like how VNs does it, or like Japanese RPGs that have kind of like they have similar storytelling structures where it's like just a bunch of either text bubbles or like has like a VN format with like the text box at the bottom, and
that's not entirely the case. There's other games that do this too, but I mean I think the thing is you can kind of use tricks, right? Like for example, there's a great scene in Metal Gear Rising during the first boss fight where they play an instrumental version of the music for the fight, and then as soon as a particular QuickTime event happens, the music kind of like pauses for a second, and then the vocal version just cuts in instantly. And I know that Nier Automata does something very similar with a lot of the songs, where it kind of blends seamlessly. But again, these are just kind of tricks based on events that are not quite as dynamic in a visual novel, because it's just like, oh, they hit this spot in the text, I guess I could maybe try to advance the music to a certain point right here, but that's very hard to do well.
You can do that depending on what you've got. There are either with like crossfading into another track that's just very similar, like if you have like sort of like a backing, like some sort of pulsing action sort of track, and right at the hype moment, if you want to fade into something, it's actually not all that difficult to queue up something like that. Like with that, just have like in the background say, oh no, just line up with the, like keep a counter of the beat and just line up with the beat and it can work. Like you can do that, but it does take a little more effort and a little more talking to your composer than just say, hey, I need X tracks for X situations.
It's the difference between...
Totally possible, just doesn't necessarily get done very often.
It's the difference between like making music for your visual novel and making music a primary consideration for how the scene plays out, rather than just being like, well, it needs to be there, right? And not that it can do more than that.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen what the script calls for, but I know somebody was talking about how they felt like a lot of times... in Fate Stay Night, actually, there were some of the soundtrack moments that lined up really well with what was happening in the text. And I think they did have some cues kind of like that in there. I'd have to look back and see, like, this was not from any kind of official source. This was someone who happened to mention it, and someone also backed up the idea. So I was going to go back and look at some point, and I never did. But it can be done. Just isn't.
Yep.
You'll have to look and see for sure if that's something they did there or not. Not that, like, there's only like a handful of really amazing tracks in Fate Stay Night. A lot of them are just kind of like, okay, they set the background very well. They're not like amazing, super memorable, except for like two maybe. But like even a not super memorable track, you can do something special with like that. So that actually reminds me of something that I was wanting to say at some point in here about soundtracks and VNs, is that for me, at least, what is more important in a soundtrack for a VN isn't to have like a handful of really memorable and amazing tracks, but to have soundtracks or have tracks that are more fitting to providing a good atmosphere for the VN, instead of being like, oh, this is something that you're going to want to listen to all the time afterwards, which sometimes it is, and that's awesome. But what's more important to me is how it fits in with the scene at the moment, rather than being like, this is an amazingly well-crafted piece of music, but if it just doesn't really click with the scene, I consider that a failure on the soundtrack.
Yeah, I think like my favorite example of that is probably Sayana Uta, where I mean, there's good songs in there, but there's not like tracks in the soundtrack that I sit down and just listen to over and over again. But my God, the sound design to establish an atmosphere that goes along with the tone of that game is fucking phenomenal in Cyanide. The tiny little details where you have one of the character themes being this kind of like very ethereal, kind of high pitched but like a slightly upbeat theme, but in the background there's this very distorted synth that like comes in partway through the song because there's like hints that this character is not exactly what they assume. Like they do a really good job of tying the stuff together to make a very kind of holistic design where the tracks are super representative of the atmosphere going on in often very subtle ways.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like you say, Cyanide is one of the big ones that I think of that for. It's just for me, it's that's exactly it. It's like, which I remember buying the Fata Morgana soundtrack when I bought Fata and disregarding the fact that I didn't really like Fata that much. I also have not found myself listening to the soundtrack at all, because I thought some of it worked pretty well for what it was doing for the scenes, but I was like, I don't need to listen to these.
Yeah, there's like one song I enjoy
having read it.
Like outside of that, and only because it brings back specific emotions related to the scene it was played at.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that is one of the nice things about listening back to some soundtracks is that you can get some of that. Like for me, I listened back to the soundtrack of Love Alternative about a year ago, after however long it had been since I read that. And I was like, damn, some of the moments, some of the tracks, just like, man.
Yeah, they can really get you for sure.
Yeah. So something else, kind of moving into a slightly different topic away from the way the way the music functions in VNs. There's a lot of different ways, or there's a lot of different kinds of music, and you see a lot of different types of tracks in VNs, like your simple, easygoing background slice of life music, your crazy hype action tracks, and very frequently you'll have like a vocal insert or something for a certain emotional scene or for like the opening or the ending. Do you guys find any of these particularly more impactful or important than the others, or?
Well, me personally, like, I'm always like a sucker for like the good emotional tracks because like, I'm like one of those people that like, gets hit in the feels like really easily. So like when like a really emotional moment is happening and like there's this really good emotional song that's like playing in the background at the same time, like I feel like it helps make the scene hit that much harder. I mean, it kind of goes for, a lot of other media too, but like I feel like emotional songs and visual novels, like maybe I'm just biased, but they really stick out to me because, scenes, since I'm kind of like reading at my own pace, I feel like I can hear the track more however long it's going. And like, let's see, what's a good example? Like there's it's kind of I'm not going to say what it is obviously, but there's like, there's definite parts in Love Alternative, like more than a few, where like part of why I remember specific scenes is because, while like, the emotional moment is happening, there's a song that's playing in the background at the same time. I'm like, dang it, why are you doing this to me? but then after when I'm done reading the VN, like I'll sometimes like I kind of want to relive that really emotional moment I really liked, and then like I'll listen to that song outside of it, like on YouTube, like however long, and then I get kind of emotional and remember that scene. But I feel like those are like the most impactful because I'm like a sucker. Like I said, I'm a sucker for like the big emotional, hard hitting parts of VNs, like whether they're like happy emotional moments or like really sad or bittersweet or whatever. So that's when
I kind of have similar feelings, but I'm a sucker for the huge hype moments. Like, for example, again, to go back to Umineko, like the fact that Golden Slaughterer plays exactly once per episode and has very particular associations with what's happening there, or like the moment in Chapter 5 where Dream End Discharger cuts in and I'm just like, oh shit, we getting serious now. Like that kind of stuff where, again, you can, I think part of the fun of like, especially with like motifs in songs, is that you can build associations with things and have expectations. So again, like the first time I hear Golden Slaughter, I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cool song. And the second time I hear, I'm like, oh, they're playing it at the same kind of moment. And then the third time, I'm like, oh fuck, it's Golden Slaughterer time. Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. Personally for me, I'm this is kind of a known to some people already, but I'm rather fond of OPs in VNs. I'm the person who will listen to it every single time. Like if it's one that loads up at the very beginning of the VN, I will let it play out every single time before I get to the menu. Like when I was playing alternative, to bring that up again, like right at the beginning, the OP plays, and so every single time I was like, yes, of course I'm gonna listen to Jam Project.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up like the importance of like openings in like when we were talking about like where application of music in VNs, and I do think it's interesting how sometimes OPs are like always in the beginning whenever you load up the game. Sometimes they only show up with, like a little after you press new game, you'll get past like the prologue or whatever. Or so I've always been interested why they do it like that, because I feel like the type of songs they choose for OPs are like it's kind of like anime songs, or like they're for the most part like really
J-pop,
J-pop heavy, but they're catchy, but that's part of, I feel like that's part of like what sells people a lot of times to anime, like, oh shit, dude, this really cool OP is really catchy, maybe I might check out the show.
I have totally watched anime based off of seeing the OP before.
Death Parade, basically.
And then been really disappointed in some things. I can't say I've done that with a VN yet, but I'm sure it'll happen
To be
someday.
fair, that seems like a poor decision. I'm gonna commit to a 30 to 40 hour reading experience because of a 2-minute J-pop song I heard once.
Yeah, of course.
True, yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think in that similar vein, though, I always love when you have like evolving title screens where the music changes as you get to certain points in the game, because again, it gives you that kind of, if you're the kind of person who sits and stops to listen to like the menu music, whatever, when you get there, like Chaos Child did a good example of this, but where you have the idea is that as you get further into the story, the music changes to fit the tone of the game, which is kind of a fun thing you can do.
So Ange, I have a little bit of a personal question.
Yes.
You were talking about how how what music can add to an emotional scene. Have you ever found that the music, in particular in like in an H scene, actually ruins the mood?
Ruins the mood?
Yeah, have you ever had that happen?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I was kind of ready, but I didn't expect to actually call it AC music. But it's funny because like sometimes like it's kind of like the slice of life kind of music where it's kind of just there, but then like sometimes it's like I feel like it tries too hard to like be like too sexy or too cheesy or too dramatic even sometimes. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, but. I mean, I wouldn't say it like ruins it, but it's just kind of weird sometimes, like when you're going through.
It
like,
always throws me for a loop because I feel
weird,
like
but...
almost all like sexy music in VN sounds the fucking same no matter which VN it is. So I hear the track come on, and I'm just like, oh hey, it's sex time.
It does sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't.
And they're like, oh no.
Yeah, for the most part, it doesn't really particularly bother me. Just every once in a while, it's kind of weird. But when you've seen like so many Asians, like it kind of doesn't matter anymore, I guess.
Okay, well, enough about that. So, moving right along, there's we got a number, we've mentioned some of them already, like Umineko has a really, really well-known and very well-praised soundtrack. What other ones, like maybe some that are community favorites, or maybe some personal favorites? What else do you guys...
So there's a VN that I'm not the biggest fan of, but I have to kind of consistently praise its soundtrack for being very interesting, which is Chisenjo no Mao, where the vast majority of the soundtrack consists of remixes of classical music, which is done in a very interesting way that, again, they kind of use like character themes. I think like the Yakuza guy, Gonzo, gets a remix of Tchaikovsky's Slavic March, which is really good. Like, they really do a good job kind of taking these classical pieces and remixing remixing them in a game that heavily features classical music as like a story influence. So like that kind of stuff, for example, I always like, where they really take the soundtrack and make it like a very, it's very clear that it's been a big part of the design process and not just kind of an afterthought.
My one of my favorite moments reading Jisen, which I have a very mixed opinion of the soundtrack for Jisen, because some of the remixes I do not care for at all. But one of my favorite moments was when they actually just straight up used Wagner in there. No remix, just good old Wagner.
One thing I noticed, like, it seems like outside stuff like Umineko, like, seems like people, unless I'm like reading the wrong places, a lot of people just like, they usually tend to like say, oh, in this visual novel, I really like these certain amount of songs, and not necessarily like I liked the whole visual novel soundtrack. Because usually, like, I think we were saying earlier, like a lot of a whole lot of a visual novel soundtrack on average is like the slice of life kind of just atmosphere, like the songs that kind of set the mood but don't necessarily stick out. But then like there's like a lot of really popular songs that like play in very specific moments. I feel like those are the ones, the type of songs people tend to remember more, and not necessarily like the whole soundtrack itself, which is interesting. Like Ryan was saying, like Saya no Uta is like people just remember it for like being very.
Yeah, it's like if you were to ask me to name like specific tracks in Silent Uta, I can only name like one or two, but I definitely remember the whole VN having like a very consistently good soundtrack. It's just that it's just like the one or two that's mentioned. I think it's kind of funny that I think Fata Morgana has kind of a reverse problem where people tend to generally enjoy the soundtrack, and like as a whole, people tend to like most of the tracks, except for Ephemera, where everyone falls into two camps: either you clap along or you have no soul. So it's one of the real one of just the two.
Yeah, one of the interesting things to me about what people like about soundtracks is that a lot of people will say, yeah, like just one or two for something. But if you play back some of a soundtrack for somebody, they'll totally remember it. Like one of the big ones that a lot of people know just because it's been read by a lot of people is Rewrite. That there's not necessarily a ton of tracks in Rewrite that you're just like, yeah, that one was amazing.
I don't think I can name a single one, so
exactly.
Well,
but if you play just any of the everyday kind of slice of life music for somebody who's read Rewrite, they'll just be like, oh yeah,
oh sorry, I lied, Soft Windflower is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's it.
But like they'll be kind of like brought right back to that, and that's kind of one of the cool things about soundtracks is like, even if you aren't like, man, this is one of my favorite soundtracks, like this is so good, like even though like I don't have, like you say, I don't really have any big memorable tracks from Rewrite, or really honestly hardly any of the key,
except for like Dango, for example.
except for the Danko song in Clannad, but like most of them don't have huge standout tracks. But if you hear any piece of that soundtrack, you'll just kind of be brought right back to where you were when you were reading it, just because it's so pervasive through the reading experience. And I think that's really cool, is that like, even if it's like it is well-known music, it's liked music by people, but no one goes around being like, yeah, this had such a great soundtrack because of all these tracks, because you just don't. But kind of sticks with you, and I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I'll say for me, there are a few in Rewrite I do remember, but it kind of goes back to I remember this song because it happened in this very particular emotional moment in Rewrite, and I can think of a few that get to me, like there's one in Kotori's route, one in, I think the ending is Shizuru's route, her that vocal song plays at the end, and then the way end of Moon and stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, I'm not gonna be like, yo, this song's like fucking legit. I'm listening to it like 10 million times on repeat.
Yeah. And see, well, this is for me where I get back to saying that one of the things that sticks with me the most is OPs. Because I have listened to the Rewrite OP a bunch of times, because I really like that track. But that's it. Like, there's nothing else from Rewrite that I'm like, I have to have this on my playlist. Just that. And I feel that way about a lot of soundtracks, honestly.
Yeah, like I'm surprised we haven't really shielded like more than we have. But, like Umineko, like the one great thing I like about that visual novel is since the original creator Ryukishi actually classifies it as a sound novel, he's kind enough to actually include like the original sound files, like when you get the game, like they're in the folders. So I'm like, whoa, cool.
Yeah, they're just sitting there.
And
Yep.
I'm like, okay, well, I'll just put the ones that I really like into my good old playlist, and then there's definitely a whole bunch of those in there that I would listen to on repeat, and then also like including like some of the emotional tracks, but like even just like the cool tracks, like Ralano saying like the Golden Slaughter and like all the ZTS hype trance songs, but and then like some of like the really fast paced songs by Die, like by playing some like the action scenes that is really catchy or really cool. So like I mean, as far as soundtracks, it's pretty hard to beat Umineko in terms of overall really good and can actually listen to them outside the VN, like
Well, I
without
mentioned
context.
Umineko a lot, but I think to give more credit to Rukishio 7, I think it's a slight disservice to some of the other things that 7th expansion has made, like Higurashi and Rose Gun's Days, which also have excellent soundtracks that have a ton of care put into them. Like
Mm-hmm.
the melody from Dear You, for example, is just like littered throughout the entirety of
Oh
Higurashi. It's
yes.
just this motif you hear the whole
Oh
time.
yeah.
Or Rose Gun's Days with this very jazzy, like very different kind of soundtrack that you
Oh,
don't get in other VNs.
a soundtrack for Rose Guns Days is really
I'm
good.
listening to Excel Ratio
I
right now.
really,
Actually, I was like, "Oh right, those songs
Yeah,
are in the folder. I can just go click on that."
yeah, I liked. It was the same sort of thing. Like I liked so many of those tracks. I don't have any of them in a playlist or anything
Yeah.
really. Though maybe some of them I could sift through, but I don't want to sift through that huge soundtrack to pick out the ones I like. Um,
I mean, we can just sit here and keep talking good soundtracks. I mean, I think something we haven't touched on with openings has been a constant thing, but I think actually something that I really appreciate more so than openings is ending themes, just because it's kind of like it's usually like the emotional capstone of the VNs. So like like I feel
Yeah.
like Kara no Shoujo 2 has a great ending, which is made infinitely better
Saw
by
that
how
coming.
good the song is playing over the credits, and you're just kind of sitting there like at your desk depressed as fuck, and the music cuts in, and you're just like, God damn.
I still like that every couple months you just like PM me Karno Shoujo
I'm like,
2
hey,
music.
remember a Kara Shoujo ending?
Hey, I hope you haven't forgotten yet.
You feel like crying today, bitch?
Wow.
I mean, Chaos Child is the same thing. We're listening to anything. Or Ricordando from Mineko is the same way. Or I mean, because I like the opening is nice because you
Oh,
get
yeah,
to hear it
Ricordando,
every
yeah.
time when you load the game up, but you get kind of a consistent
Mhm.
thing. But like, man, sitting there and watching the credits roll while the ending plays is just such a cathartic moment that having a really like good song there does wonders for the atmosphere.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree there. Like, there's definitely like a bunch of ending songs that I'll still listen to every so once in a while, just partially because you get the cathartic feeling. When it's like it kind of usually it kind of like like I'm sure like it's carefully crafted when they make the song, but it kind of feels like it ties up the themes of what happened, like the final route or whatever, and either it's really emotional or whatever. However, the
Okay,
game's
this,
like
this
whatever.
is not a VN, but I just want to shout out there because a really great example of something like this that's close-ish to VNs is Persona 4, where
Oh yeah.
the ending theme uses the same melody as the main menu music, and so when you get to the end of the game and it starts playing, you're like, oh god, it's both the opening and the ending. This is it just fucking destroys you. It's like it was great bookends for the whole experience,
Yeah.
and so I like that kind of thing too, where you can again it's these motifs you work in, you build in the expectations over the course of the story.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I think that's a good way to make a memorable ending as well, is to use some facet of the music that you are already familiar with. Because otherwise, like you want that to be a memorable moment, but if it's all completely brand new, it just might not stick with you as much. But if it does have that
Yep.
motif that's been playing constantly at various parts throughout the experience, then it just really settles in for you so much more. It can make a much better experience.
Yeah, like the three I can think off the top of my head that in VNs that actually use like one of the original openings or BGM was Hoshimemo, Clannad, and Rewrite, which I think are all like their ending songs, or at least to me, I like them a lot and they're pretty memorable. So it was cool to hear those endings.
All right, so we could go on and on really all day about soundtracks we liked and just keep tossing more onto the pile, but we don't really want to do that. So we're going to shift over a little bit earlier than usual to talking about news that's happened since the last time we had one of these. And for those of you keeping score at home, it's been a while. So I'm just going to run down a list here of some of the stuff that has come out since last time we had a cast, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those. One of the big things that happened, Muv-Luv went down and was relaunched upon Steam. The Vita versions are out now, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's fairly recent. Root Double finally got released on Vita. There were a lot of people who were looking forward to that. Sujido-san got a full fan patch. The new Konosora, or for those of you who have it on Steam, If My Heart Had Wings, had a full retranslation that I think Ange wants to talk about a little bit later. Steins Gate Zero had its PC port with the spin-off Linear Bounded Phenogram. Nekopara Volume 1 is on the PS4 and the Switch, which personally, that surprised me a little bit on the Switch.
I wonder if you could have real petting controls with the Joy-Cons, but I don't know. I don't know anything about it, but I assume that's the main selling point, right?
Maybe
you got the Joy-Cons.
It could be a new interactive experience that they only dreamed of when Nekopara Volume 1 was originally released. And next up, we got Higurashi Tsukiyotoshi, a console-only alternative to Episode 3. I'm not familiar with that one, Ange.
Yeah, I was going through the subreddit and I saw it was a fan translation, so
yeah, I figured it was, but I'm just not familiar with that episode. Honestly, I'm not as familiar with the console-only ones.
Yeah, me neither. To be honest, I was like, oh, yeah.
Cool. Okay. Also, we have the Fata Morgana Requiem for Innocence fan disc has come out. Clannad is on the PS4. Higurashi Chapter 6 has come out. Happy Meher has come out. Evenical has come out fairly recently, and that's one I want to talk about a little bit later. We have a Fantiel for Promise of Haruhi Suzumiya. And we also have the second Flowers game has come out. Our Grisaya Kickstarter physicals finally have shipped. And Muv-Luv will be shipping any day now, and I am so excited to finally get my things that I bought however long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to talk about every single one of these because some of this is old news, but we want to talk a little bit about some of these. So, Ange, do you want to start off and tell us about this retranslation patch for Konosora?
Yeah, oh man. So, as if people don't know, the original If My Heart Had Wings on Steam was done by Minoy Novel, who's very infamously known to censor, a lot of the VN. But it wasn't just they just took out the 18 plus stuff and just kept all the all ages stuff, which is what a lot of companies do these days. No, they went ham. They rewrote some jokes. A weird example is if the main character is looking at someone's boobs, I think they say he's looking at her eyes or something funny.
Except the camera is actually focused down on her chest at that point.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. And then apparently Ageha's route was almost fully rewritten just because of I guess it was a little more sensual than usual. But I mean, I guess otherwise, even though it did the overall things were the same, but ultimately the writing was just way different than the Japanese version. So on Fua Novel, there's a project to actually fully retranslate it from the ground up, so it's actually closer to the Japanese text and not just a lot of the weird localization dialogue choices they chose. So that they did have a restoration patch, which was a kind of a quick fix to just put the 8 CGs back, 8 plus CGs back, and maybe rewrite Ageha's out a little bit. But this retranslation project is actually translated everything from the ground up. And there's a project on Fua Novel. It took a bit long, and I ended up being a QC, quality control, quality assurance for it, and it was really fun because I've never been part of a fan translation project of any kind, so it was cool to catch all the little misspellings and bugs that you see. It was cool to see all the little things that happen in a fan translation project that a lot of people who read VNs probably don't see. So I mean we've also had like a few post patch releases to like fix some other um misspellings or grammar issues or bugs that people found, but there were a bunch of little things, and it was cool to like kind of have maintenance for a fan translation, which I don't think happens too often as far as I know. So, but overall, it was a project I definitely enjoyed being on, which is cool. I hope people read it because I really like how it came out.
I have owned it on Steam for ages now, and never read it because of the original reports of it.
Right.
And it, very possibly I'll finally get around to
Yeah.
having a look at it one of these days because this patch has finally come out. So the one off of this list that I want to talk about, and I would not have wanted to talk about before I actually played it, is I have to say I'm not really sure the best way to say this title, because in Japanese it's Ibunikuru, and that's totally not how it comes out in English. It looks like Evenical or Evenical, and it just, neither one of those is really satisfying to me. But it's an Alicesoft game. It's by the same people who made the Rance series. And it was just surprisingly engaging and fun. Just really enjoyable. It's kind of lighthearted, but also serious at times, and just kind of a lot of fun and really easy to dump a bunch of time into. Pretty much everybody I've talked to about it is just like, oh, if you start playing that, make sure you have time because it's just going to suck you in. And it's weird because I didn't feel like it was something that should have sucked me in, but it did. So if you haven't checked it out yet, you should check it out because it was a lot of fun. Yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about it.
Well, have you played the Rant series? Can you compare it to that or no?
I haven't yet. I've been meaning to for a while, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. This was kind of a just picked it up on a whim sort of thing, and like I have been meaning to play the Rant series for a while, or at least check it out, and I just keep doing other things instead. Because there's just so many things to play. There's a lot of big name things that a lot of us haven't gotten to just because you only have so much time. But soon, after having played this, I'm much more interested in trying to get on that sooner rather than later. So we'll see how that goes. Any of these you want to talk about, Ralena?
Don't mind me, just in here listening to the soundtrack. No,
God.
I haven't been following most of the recent releases. The one I have played is the Fata Morgana fan disc, which I was originally hesitant about because I really feel like Fata Morgana is a very complete story. It's very self-contained. You don't really need anything else to have a very good experience with it. But I played the fan disc right when it came out, and man, it was actually really good. It added a lot to the main story, I felt like, in a way that made a lot of things more connect better emotionally, and basically all of the little side stories ended up adding to character development or other little bits of trivia. In the end, just kind of a phenomenal experience, which was very good. Like, would not describe it as necessary, but if you liked Fata Morgana and kind of want some more of that, it definitely enhances the experience.
Okay.
Cool, so I won't read it.
Exactly. More reasons I was like, do I mention this, or will Nax just edit this out in post? The entire... I just assume this entire discussion is not making it through post, so...
Yeah, it's gone. I just put a note right here at the timestamp. It's like, remove Fata junk. Done. I literally just wrote that.
This is fascism.
Hey. Anyway, I don't think there's anything more on these ones that we want to cover.
Well, I'll just quickly say that I actually really liked Sujito-san no Junai Road, but that's only because like I'm a big Machikoi fanboy, and Sujito was made by Minato Soft's sister company, Minato Carnival, and a lot of the writing styles and comedy is the same, so I'm not going to rate too much about it. But I just basically saying I really like it. Obviously, it's not going to be exactly the same. Like, there's no like big group of friends, and while the character, like the girls, are strong as usual, it's not like there's no Momoyo shooting Kamehamehas and stuff like that, but it's still really fun. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so just kind of like more the same style of
Yeah, same style of comedy
stuff,
and route,
but
romance, all that
not
stuff.
yeah, while not being more Magikoi.
Yeah, exactly. So it was good. It was similar, but definitely stuck out on its own. But didn't like it as much as Machikoi, but I didn't expect to. I just treated it as its own thing, and it was good. I liked it.
Cool. All right, so let's move on to some kind of things on the horizon that are coming up. We got from Manga Gamer, they've announced they're gonna be bringing over both Rants 9 and 10, which is not really a surprise, I don't think.
No.
Just has got, of course, they're continuing on with Flowers with Part 3. They're bringing over Totono, which a lot of people are kind of interested in, but who knows how long that's going to take. And they've got their Just Blue, which is their BL division. Yeah?
Yeah.
Bringing over Togaino no Chi, Dramatical Murder, and Lamento, which are all coming who knows when. Yeah. Sekai Project slash Dempasoft bringing over Majikoi Nikki, which did have a fan TL. I'm assuming they got some of that, or is that?
I'm not sure if they bought it. I just
okay. Just they've got
they just got it.
They've got the title.
Yeah,
they've got the title.
Yeah.
Harumare Kururu, which I'll talk about a little bit later. What?
I mean, it just has the best opening of any visual novel, from my understanding. So
I hear.
It's something else. There's a Nekopara Extra, which is a prequel of everything. So is that before Nekopara 0 or
yes,
Volume 0?
They showed preview at AX, but basically they're like CGs, like when Kasho, the protagonist, actually just adopted the girls for the first time, and
okay,
little CGs of them, yeah.
Gotcha. All right, and then we've got Tokyo Chronos VR, which is I don't know anything about that.
Some virtual, it's some virtual reality
cool
thing they're experimenting with, yeah.
That's cool. Front Wing, bringing over something that probably a lot of people are excited about, Island. Written by the same author that wrote Himawari, so the people who liked Himawari a lot might like that, or they might not. See how that goes. So this next group, is it Soul Press or SOL Press?
I just say Soul. I just say Soul Press.
Soul. Okay, that's what I thought. But Soul Press is going to be bringing out that the Newton game. I forget the full title.
Newton,
of that. I didn't write it down here. Yeah. But waiting for Steam approval on that, which we'll get to a little bit later. Nekonyan is going to announce some titles here in August. And then Spike Chunsoft is bringing over Steins Gate Elite for Switch, PS4, and PC. And the Yuno remake is coming out in the West for PS4 and PC sometime in 2019. So, any particular ones of these you want to dig into a little bit?
I know a lot of people, like the people who read in Japanese, they said like Totono is like the DDL, like Doki Doki Literature Club before Doki Doki Literature Club was a thing. Like, I mean, I won't say what it is, but if you read DDLC, you probably know what I'm referring to. But yeah,
I've actually heard. I've heard that comparison made a lot, and then I've also heard some other people say, yeah, the people who are saying that are crazy. Because what it does is very different in a number of ways. And I honestly, I don't know fully what it is that it does. The comparison is everywhere though. Like you can't get away from hearing the comparison that people like to make. But my understanding is it is yes, but no, as far as the comparisons you want to draw to them.
Right. Yeah, but regardless, I'm going to check it out based on the stuff I hear about it, which I won't say if you don't know yet, but it's definitely interesting and potentially entertaining sounding. So,
yeah, of these, I'm kind of interested in watching from a measured distance the release of Steins Gate Elite and the Yuno remake, just because I'm kind of like not a huge fan of either one of these, and like this seems like it could turn out poorly. Maybe it'll end up being good, but like I have very low hopes for Steins Gate Elite. And then for like I think getting a re-release is really good because is a very very good visual novel with massive accessibility issues, and so it's cool that they're remaking it because it means that more people can actually get to play this game, which is very good. But I really think from seeing the art, it's going to lose a lot of charm in the process. I have a feeling that they're probably going to redo the soundtrack. I don't think they
Almost
can make a
certainly.
modern game with the old school synth soundtrack, which is very, very. Like I said, I'm listening to it right now. It's fantastic. It has a very particular charm and style to it, and I think they're going to lose some of that in the process. So I'm curious to see how it's going to turn out. I'm, not super optimistic about it, but we'll see.
Yeah, that seems to be kind of the general consensus I've heard from people, just from everybody who's been talking about the remake. Is
There's so much charm to
Yeah.
this game, like little bits of like the art style, the music. I mean, sure, it's old, but it has a really cool retro aesthetic to it that is like there's a lot of detail and care that went into it, and the new one just looks kind of very generic. So
hmm Yeah, so like I was saying here, the one of these off this list that I'm kind of most interested and excited to see is one that I've already read, Harukuru, which is it has kind of a reputation for the way its prologue begins, with 15 H scenes before the OP plays. And what's really interesting about this release is supposedly, from the murmurings that have happened, there is going to be an all ages version.
I don't know how that's gonna work.
So the thing is, I haven't actually seen an official confirmation of that, but since the original unofficial announcement about it happened like a year ago or something, people have been also saying that an all ages version is supposed to happen. And I'm just sitting here thinking about that prologue, trying to think, well, I guess most of them aren't important, but what do you even do when every other scene is nailing someone else?
God.
I don't know, but I'm kind of interested to find out. It's one I'm probably going to reread with the translation, not only to see how well the translation is, which it's being done by Meru, which I don't know if you know who they are, but they are a big Harukuru fan as well. Uses one of the Harukuru characters as their avatar on Twitter,
I know over
and
here.
yeah, should be a really good really good translation with a lot of care given to it because she's such a fan of the VN. So I'm really looking forward to what comes out here.
The only other thing I can say is I think it's funny that a lot of companies these days like to do. Oh, we're announcing that we're going to do an announcement on a different day that's
Yeah.
not today because we gotta not surprise you, or I guess I don't, or hype you up in a countdownish way. I don't know why they do like to do that. But
There was it's not on your list here actually, of things, but Uchikoshi recently announced his next project.
oh yeah, that looked dope actually.
Yeah, that was originally dubbed Project P-Sync for a while, and there he did a couple of like, we're going to give you an announcement, and then the announcement was for an announcement for the next announcement. And it's like, excuse me, can you give us information already? And now I think it's called the Somnia Files or something.
Yeah.
And it looked like I saw the trailer for it on the announcement with the name change from Project P-Sync, and it looked pretty cool. I'm not the biggest fan of Uchikochi's stuff from what I've read of it, but it looked really cool, and so that's one to keep your eye out for if you're a fan of either of any of the things that he's worked on in the past. So. All right. Well, getting away here from things that are coming out and some things that have happened. For anyone who was around, I think it was 2 months ago when this
Something like that,
first broke out. That day where we thought that VNs were gonna vanish from Steam. that was a special day. And fortunately, there were a lot of VNs that had adult content or kind of borderline content got hit with a warning to say, hey, you need to change things to fit our guidelines, or we're going to take down your product. And people are like, well, what do we do? And there was a lot of kind of scary things. And then fortunately, Steam backpedaled on it a couple days later, and said, no, keep your stuff, but we are going to get some new guidelines with about the way we filter this content, which kind of brings us to today, where we're seeing some things that are being blocked from being on Steam right away until Steam gets that figured out. And kind of the first one that we saw for is kind of, I know a number of people who are looking forward to this English visual novel, Shining Song Star Nova, which I read the demo for a while back, and it wasn't bad. I kind of enjoyed it. But it is not able to be on Steam until they get their whole filtering thing sorted out. And so we're still kind of looking at this as a potential problem, what Steam wants and doesn't want on their service, which, as the largest digital distribution platform in English, is potentially problematic. How do you guys feel about this?
I saw somebody like make the point like, well, why can't we have like these, AAA games that, happen to have like nudity or 18 plus content get in? Like, obviously those are going to stay just because, they're AAA games, and those would be even more of a cry out than in the VN community, which is obviously much of a fraction compared to like AAA games like I think Witcher 3 was one of the ones that like have 18 plus
Witcher 3 was brought up a lot in that initial rush of things that was happening. It's like, oh, well, there's explicit sex in Witcher 3, or I don't actually know if there is or not, but
yeah, so I heard
people brought that up a lot, saying like, oh, well, this is here, why is that allowed? And
I feel like Steam is just picking the wrong hill to die on and attempting to create this sort of censorship thing. And I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of content, but just like put it somewhere else, let people opt in if they want it, and then just keep it in its own section. There's no need to try to become a filter that curates for content more so than just being a publisher or a platform for this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of understand that as a distributor why they wouldn't want that stuff easily accessible, because there are a lot of kids who are playing on this. Like, I don't know, most services like Steam say that you have to be at least 13 years or older to have an account or something. I don't know if that's actually true for Steam. I've had my Steam account forever now, so I don't even know what their regulations are, but it's probably 13, I would assume. And this is content that's for 18, supposedly 18 years or older. And so I guess they're still trying to figure out, like, how do we make it so these people can't find it? Because they'll find it, but they don't want to. They don't want them to, because then mom and dad will come and say, hey, why is my kid seeing tits on Steam, where they're playing their whatever kids play these days? God, I just sounded old when I said that. Fuck.
To be fair, you are an old man, so this makes sense.
I guess it would be even worse if it was 2D anime titties, because that's even, I guess, in most people, in most of society, that's considered weirder than actual porn that, or explicit content that's at least 3D or realistic-ish based, as opposed to just like literally 2D drawn girls that probably aren't even 18 themselves. So that would just be even more awkward for the parents to find out.
No, but there's a disclaimer that everyone appearing in this visual novel is at least 18 years of age, so it's okay, don't worry.
Oh yeah. Oh, can't forget about that.
Yeah, don't worry. You can't forget about the big disclaimer splash screen that's at the beginning of every single VN ever.
That good old Machina,
at least in English.
Clearly 18.
Yep. Anyway, gonna be, personally, I'm kind of keeping my eye on what's going on with that, because hopefully it's the same sort of thing where just they get some tools in place and then it doesn't bother anyone anymore. And hopefully it's not something about Steam trying to be turned into some kind of moral crusader, because that'd be awkward, to me at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all hope that they just allow it, but we'll see what happens. Hope for the best.
Yeah. So a couple other more recent. This is a more recent release and something that we should spend a little bit of time talking about is Moe Novel is at it again and has released another translation for cross channel, the third one.
Yep.
And without even talking about the fact that there is a third translation of a really massive and difficult to translate game, like I mean, without even going into the details of that, just kind of the fact that it exists as a third translation for it is just kind of amazing to me. I was not personally, I was not expecting Moe Novel's big announcement to be cross-channel of all things, because I knew a lot of people as soon as they heard about that, and it's like, well, what are they going to release then? Because it's Moe Novel, and I guess there is a all ages version of it, and I assume that's what they translated and localized, but also my understanding is it cuts out a lot of stuff. I don't know. I haven't read Cross Channel. I don't know if either of you have, but I have.
I have not. I mean, I want to because I like Romeo, but I've also not had interest because of the translations being fucking a mess.
Yeah.
I read. I don't even know which version. I don't even know which translation I read, to be honest. I didn't even know there were multiple ones, but
you probably read the first one, I'm guessing.
Probably, but God, this is like at a time where I was like, what are translation groups? If I want English, I see a patch and I get the patch. But other than that, yeah, I know at some point in Japan they released like a all ages version, like on was it Xbox 360 or Vita or PS3? I don't remember, but I'm gonna assume it's based on that. But Cross Channel does kind of feel like one of those weird cases where the 18s kind of sort of have plot relevance, but I don't know. It's been so long since I've read it, but it's just weird that it got a third read chance. Like I'm really hesitant to support it because I actually liked the end because it was really unique and psychological and stuff. But like, yeah, after like what I heard about the translation, I'm like, do I support Moe Novel, especially since I just worked on a project that was like the anti-Moe Novel project? So I don't know. I don't know what to do. I mean, it's only $10 right now too, so I was like, well,
that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't.
Wow, is that a sale price?
$10? Doesn't seem like it. No, it's just $9.99. That's it.
That's nuts. That's just actually bonkers. Holy shit.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that, but I don't know. It's good from what I read, but I don't know. I can't remember how much is actually taken out in this release, so I couldn't say either way. But I know a lot of people complained about it. But
yeah, well, a lot of people complain about everything, so
yeah,
it's the nature.
But it's
just kind of the nature of it.
Yeah.
Cool. So next up, another release. Singling this one out because this is the first one that Nekonyan has done, right?
Yep.
Fureraba, which has gotten fairly decent reception. I actually managed to not see much about it when it came out, so I gotta go off of what you noticed, Ange.
Yeah.
But in general, people seem to have liked it. You say the localized nature of the script has been mixed reception. What exactly do you mean by that?
Like the best example I can think of.
Is it like locations like people talk about for like the Ace Attorney series, or is it like something else?
It's like really like I'll just say the dialogue is like it's first of all it's a moe game, and there's like comedy and stuff, but like from what I remember correctly, like I believe like they made the main character like outwardly curse like a lot more, and like some of the dialogue like made the comedy sounds like I need it. It's been so long since like this game came out. I don't have an example anymore, but they had some interesting ones. But I don't think it's as mixed reception anymore. It's kind of more at the time. I saw some people like, oh, this is interesting, and some like, oh, this is weird. But I think it's overall people like it just because of how silly it is, or it has good. It's just that they like it for the moe aspect, I assume. But I haven't read it myself personally, but I have bought it just because it seemed kind of my thing, and people liked it, and I wanted to support Neko and Neon because they're apparently trying to do their own thing of like the anti Kickstarter, which is an interesting practice. I want to see
Right,
how well they
yeah.
can go along with that. So yeah.
Yeah, that was something I was kind of excited to see when I saw them kind of burst out onto the scene. Is that they're like, we want to try to do this without doing Kickstarter, which when we've got so many people doing Kickstarters, it feels like it at least. It feels like we have so many people doing Kickstarters. It's nice to see somebody else saying, no, we're going to try to not do that, which is cool. So, yeah, moving on down. It's kind of old news now, but again, it's been so long. Kind of old news now. The problems with the Dies Irae physical rewards. That was really something else. Because there were a lot of things that I honestly don't know how it happened. If like maybe a column on a spreadsheet was in the wrong place or something got shifted around. But a lot of rewards went out to the wrong people. I actually thought it was really funny because I don't know if either of you were there for this, but like somebody I know got the certificate that was made out to Steiner, who was one of the translators.
Yeah.
Steiner didn't get his stuff, but someone else who happens to be in the community got his package instead. It was just very, very weird. But they've gotten, I think that's mostly gotten sorted out now. I remember seeing the initial craze about it, and then I think it all got sorted out, because I think it might have been, it wasn't just the certificates. Like people actually got entire reward tiers that they weren't supposed to get sometimes, and so. But they've been making it right, from my understanding.
Do you know how? Like I've been like honestly, I just saw the original Outcry, huh?
I don't know exactly how they are, but I've seen some people get things resolved. I would have to look into it a little bit more to see, but I know they're trying to make things so everyone actually gets what they're supposed to get, which is good, because that'd be pretty bad if they didn't. Especially on the end of everything else that happened with that Kickstarter. Ralina has expressed how he felt about that Kickstarter before.
It's fine. Said no
Did
one.
Did you have any physical things?
No,
or
I
did you
didn't have
just
any
get all
physical
digital
things,
stuff?
and I didn't
Good
care
on
about the
you.
18 plus version. So I had actually a fantastic experience at DACRI. It was great, really, aside from the fucking soundtrack.
Yeah. All right, moving on along here, we've got Subahibi's getting a new bit of it added in the new Japanese release. I don't think there's been any word about if that's gonna get brought over to English or not, but that's exciting for anybody who liked Subahibi and maybe looking for something more. I don't know if it feels like it needed something more, but still haven't read it myself.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that's gonna go, because
Yeah.
it's pretty complete, but it's also kind of open-ended in some ways. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Moving on overseas, Sprite, who's the creator of Koi Choco and Alcana, have announced a suspension of activity, but also have expressed interest in an official Western release of Alcana, which, for anyone who's followed anything about Alcana, knows that has been a very rocky place for fan translations. Many people starting and stopping in the middle. And there's a lot of people looking forward to that one coming out someday, maybe.
Yeah, like that's like one of the like last few quote unquote kamigays that people praise about, that are like one of the best currently like untranslated VNs. So I'm kind of curious if Sprite is gonna give out the TL to like one of these current translation companies, or if they're gonna like pull a key or pull a front wing and trying to do like their own thing. So interesting to see if, I mean, of course they said they want to, but we'll see. Remains to be seen if they actually will.
They say they want to, but it remains to be seen if they actually do.
It'd be cool though if it happened. It seems interesting.
Yeah. Next up, we have some people have been looking forward to for a long time, and honestly, I'm sort of surprised this actually finally came out. My Tetsu, which is the known to many people as a train lolly game, has come out, but there's been some controversy around it. Shocker. And honestly, I don't know the full details of this. I just know that it was missing content and not content that it should have been missing.
I think it was 18. Was it 18 plus content? But like, yeah, it was.
I don't think. Well, it was either that or I don't think I might be confusing this with a different release. But I want to say there was something, and it might have been My Tetsu, that came out with the 18 plus assets still hanging out there. And some of that might have been in there, but then other stuff was missing. I don't remember. I might have been making that up.
Yeah, because I remember for My Tetsu in particular, like, you know how the release was on Faku, I believe, instead of like and I think at first people blamed Faku, like they thought Faku was like they got rid of stuff or something, but then like apparently, you know, since Sekai Project was in charge of like people probably just figured they're the ones who had to get rid of stuff. And then I didn't put it on here, but there's a fan patch that kind of put the stuff they removed back in, but
of course,
but like I didn't really look into the details of that, but I'm sure, you know, whatever damage was done, and I don't think Sekai's not going to finish anytime soon, because there's still like those weird bugs with Leyline and Hoshimemo that people found out, and I don't think those have been resolved yet. That was like what, half a year ago now.
Yeah. Well, I remember those weird bugs with Leyline. At least I remember they were looking back through, and they're like the one with the untranslated lines being in there. It's like, it's in the script. Like the translation is in the script, and it's not pulling it for whatever reason. So it really was like a bug. They're like, how did this happen? Still happening, of course. But it was one of those like, no, we actually did do that work, but for whatever reason, it didn't go through, which is weird.
Yeah.
Last thing I got here for news on my list here. Something a lot of English speakers are excited about is a new When They Cry, or the Nonako Koroni series, which is the one by Ryukichi 07, who did Umineko and Higurashi, has been announced. Something a lot of people have been waiting to hear about for a while, when They Cry 5 will come out. And sure enough, we're talking about it now. So his release schedule for the other for Umineko and Higurashi both was like roughly 6 months between releases. So I would not be surprised if we start seeing this really start pumping out soon. I don't know if it's going to be one of those like in 4-chapter deals like Higurashi Umineko were, or if it's going to be its own sort of thing. But a lot of people are going to be really excited looking for that going forward.
Yeah, I definitely saw the hype. Like, I think the only thing thing we have out about it is like some art of the main, I believe is the main character. But other than that, we don't really have too many details besides that it's coming for sure. So I'm sure we'll see more of that soon. And I'm sure the fan translators will get to translating whenever it comes out like super quickly, like they did when the original Umineko release came out. Like, man, I remember following those days. Those were fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And, you know, honestly, for my own kind of little speculation about what might happen with this, is since there's already, like, Witch Hunt has kind of formed a relationship with RO7 at this point with their retranslation of Umineko, I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to not only get a translation pretty quickly out this time, but be able to get an officially condoned translation.
That'd be nice.
I think there's a real possibility that that could happen through like Manga Gamer, since they've already got the connection, and that'd be pretty exciting if that happens. But that's kind of my own. Hey, maybe this will happen.
Yeah, it'd be awesome, but
yeah. What do you think? What do you think about this new title coming out, Ralana?
So I know almost nothing about it, and that's very intentional. I'm kind of waiting until it actually drops to really look into it too much, because I kind of want to be surprised. So that said, I'm super excited. So
that's fair. Yeah, I personally haven't looked that much into it either. I just know that it's gonna happen, and so yeah, kind of gonna be looking a little more closely at it once it's actually out, and then go from there. Well, that wraps up news for this episode. Next up is going to be our Shill segment, today featuring Bazett from the Fua novel community to talk about Symphonic Rain.
Hi everyone, my name's Bazett, and I'm here today to show Symphonic Rain, a VN with rhythm gameplay that landed on Steam last year. You start off as Chris Furton, a music student in Piova, the city of rain. You moved here to study, leaving your girlfriend Arietta behind in your hometown, yet keeping to your sacred ritual of letter exchange every Sunday. Your correspondence with her stuffs your desk drawer. Despite leaving Arietta behind, you somehow manage to have her twin, Tortonita, tag along as a fellow student. Essentially, you are a lazy shit who needs to perform a recital to graduate. But as you are a Fortel student, which I like to think of as a mysterious magical musical instrument, you need a voice student to perform with you. You're also a massive procrastinator, so let's find your partner and thus enter the Moe girls, including Tortonita. Now, quite apart from the Moe girls, the aura that Symphonic Rain gives off is quite simply magical. Charming Italian backdrops, drizzling rain, and heartrending music all combine to create a unique, melancholy-permeated stage for our characters to surprise us, shock us, and break our hearts. I must warn you, this visual novel is not for the faint-hearted. If you go in expecting everything to be all moe moe the way it first appears, you will be deeply, horribly betrayed. And oh, did I mention the fairy? The rhythm gameplay segments are great fun on the keyboard with 3 difficulty settings, but of course if that's not your thing, there is happily an auto feature. The Capo is the name of the first section of the visual novel where you play as Chris, but after playing that you will then unlock Alfine and be able to see another point of view. I think you should play it. It's absolutely worth it. It's cute, heartbreaking, dark, fun, and the sound of rain is so incredibly soothing. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Bazett, for that recommendation of Symphonic Rain, which, as was mentioned, is available on Steam currently for the price of $39.99 US dollars, or something else maybe if you live somewhere else, which I don't know about that. Anyway, that was going to wrap things up for us this episode. Please tune in next time when we talk about romance in visual novels, a facet of VNs that is very present in many of our titles for a variety of reasons that we'll explore next time. So tune into that. It should be a good one, and we'll have a interesting guest, hopefully, to talk about that with us. So, as always, thanks for listening. I've been Nakanashi.
I'm been Einstein.
And I've been Rallin' a Tricolor.
And we'll see you next time.